Welcome into the studio. It was really cold this past week with negative 50 to 60 degree weather, but it was heating up here on the campus of St. Cloud, Nick, as there's a bunch of athletics going on.
That's right, Leif, and we'll get you caught up on everything Husky athletics because Husky Mag starts right now.
Welcome into Husky Mag Studios, and Nick, boy, it was a heck of a week with negative 50 to 60 degree weather. I was trying my best to stay warm. I didn't even leave my apartment until Husky Athletics. I'm pretty sure it was the same thing for you.
Yeah, I didn't want to go to class. Thankfully, it was canceled, so I didn't get hurt in my academics. But yeah, as soon as Husky sports took off, we were out, we were ready, and we were watching everything that was Husky athletics.
So we might as well dive into it because there's a lot to cover.
And let's start right away. The men's hockey team hosted the University of Miami Redhawks, and they were on a streak again. Ryan Paling creates his own chance 40 seconds into the game, gets it to his brother Jack, and that's it. Huskies up 1-0. Then the Miami Redhawks are trying to tie the game. Gordy Green goes a wraparound. Rennick gets his skate right on the post. Another look in the overhead, stops the puck, holds the game at 1-0.
Nice.
Then later in the period, the Redhawks were able to find the back of the net as Grant Hutton takes a slap shot and puts it right past Rennick. And you can see right there, Kark Bachman puts his body in front of David Rennick. Rennick has no chance to make the save. Game is tied 1-1. Then Robbie Jackson to Jimmy Schultz, clap bomb, you know the rest, 2-1 Huskies. Then Ryan Paling gets his own chance again, passes it to Blake Lizotte. Blake Lizotte gives it back to Rhino. Rhino puts it in the back of the net, 3-1 Huskies.
Man, that's just some excellent passing right there. Give it and take back.
And here on a breakaway, Ryan creates himself. He skates past 4 defensemen and puts it right over the pad for the Huskies, 4-1. And then later, Blake Lizotte to Patrick Newell. And the Huskies were able to take this game 5-1. Important things to note, Patrick Newell got his 99th career point of his career. The senior from California is striving to reach that 100-point mark. And as the Huskies were looking to get back to their sweeping ways back at the Herb, they hosted Miami Redhawks again on Saturday night. And let's find out how they performed. Right off the bat, Blake Lizotte gets it to Ryan Paling. Blake Lizotte back to Lizotte, finds the back of the net. Huskies up 1-0. Then later in the period, Patrick Newell skates behind the net, gives it to Jack Ashan, and Jack Ashan finds the back of the net, and you guessed it, Patrick Newell, welcome to the 100-point club. You have done it. Then Robbie Jackson skates in front of the net, dangles through, back to Blake Lizotte. Blake Lizotte, wide open net. He couldn't have missed it. I could have made that shot. Then, carbon copy of the last goal, Blake Lizotte this time skating across the net. Wide open net, Ryan Larkin caught on Blake Lizotte. Blake Lizotte gives it to Robbie Jackson. Robbie Jackson puts it in the back of the net. Then later in the period, Nick Perbix, the freshman, struggling to get into the score sheet, but he knows that he had a goal. Let's take a look at the overhead. Perbix puts it on Larkin's pad and just keeps poking away at it until it goes in the back of the net. Then 4-1, the Redhawks were able to get one past Gordy Green, gets the rebound, puts it in the back of the net. The Huskies escaped this one 5-1 as well. David Rennick had an absolute weekend. He only allowed 2 goals, over 40 shots, and this team, like you said, Leif, is so fun to watch. They were able to complete another sweep after the split at the University of North Dakota. There's a lot of positive things going for this men's hockey team right now.
Oh, absolutely. You could take a lot of aspects. It was surprising how this game was a complete domination in St. Cloud State. They swept, and compared to what they did on the road, they tied 2 of those games, which is really intriguing, and how this Miami team can maybe be a thorn in their side. But again, they proved and flexed their muscle why they're the #1 ranked team. I mean, defensively, they only allowed 9 goals in the first 2 periods on Saturday. I mean, that seems unrealistic. That just shows how powerful this team is. Well, let's see who will take up the next task in the men's hockey team, and that'll be the Tigers from Colorado College that will come to town as they will try to play, spoiler alert, at the Huskies' perfect record at home. St. Cloud State, Nick, you pointed out, 12-0 at home. That is the best best that it has happened in Division I, and no one else has done that record. St. Cloud, the only undefeated team at home. Well, looking at puck drop, that'll be set for 8:07 p.m. on Friday. That make sure that's correct. An extra hour later, 8:07 p.m. on Friday, and then 6:07 p.m. on Saturday.
And let's take a look inside the NCHC standings, see where the Huskies rank with the rest of the pack. St. Cloud State leading the way by complete domination. As you can see, the Huskies there are at the top with a 12-2-2 conference record. Right behind them is the University of Minnesota Duluth. They're just a couple games back, and not far behind them is Western Michigan. Those are the two teams that are giving the Huskies the run for their money when it comes time to the Penrose Cup and the Frozen Face-Off. Behind Western Michigan, the Denver Pioneers and the North Dakota Fighting Hawks. And rounding out the NCHC, Colorado College, who we play next weekend, Omaha Mavericks, and the University of Miami, Ohio Redhawks.
That'll be a good one here, especially with Duluth, I think, splitting last week, and there was also a big factor kind of going with that race towards the Penrose Cup. It'll be really interesting to see how it all plays down at the end of it.
That is correct.
Well, we'll stick on the ice, though, but we'll transition to the women's hockey team. They were also in action this past weekend as they look to play a little spoiler against 9th-ranked Ohio State. Started things in the first period. Ohio State strikes first as Rebecca Freiberger slaps in the first goal at the 9:42 mark. Just getting in there, Buckeyes up 1-0. Now we'll jump to the third period, still a 1-0 game, and right away Ohio State strikes within the minute as Peyton Levi's puts Ohio State up by 2. Huskies trying to find something in the third, but again they would come up empty. Ohio State would just be too dominant. They would score 3 goals in the third period to take the 4-0 win. And again, a tough start to Friday's game against a very tough Ohio State team, Nick.
And like you mentioned at the top of that story, you know, the Ohio State University Buckeyes, they're a top team in women's college hockey, and the Huskies had a test and didn't come out on top.
Well, let's see how they would fare on Saturday. Again, tough to beat a team twice in a row on their home ice. Well, let's take a look at it. Game 2 between the Huskies and Ohio State. Starting things up, Ohio State again getting off to an explosive start. Again, usually like yesterday, starting off first, they would get on the board first, 1-0. Tatum Skaggs would strike the first one for Ohio State. And again, excellent passing by Ohio State, able to get it in. They're up 2-0. Again, good save by Alder though, but again, she would be having a tough task. The Buckeyes offense would get things really moving in the second period. Buckeyes strike again. Madison Field gets one in on the putback, and Ohio State is up big this time. And again, third quarter, sadly again, Ohio State flexing their muscles, and they would show why they are ranked number 9 in the nation. And sadly for St. Cloud, they just come up short this weekend. They would get swept by Ohio State, and again, we have to see how they will play next weekend coming up.
Yeah, they have an important task. They want to finish out this season strong, and yeah, they might not. It's a little tough as the men's team is number 1, and they are kind of in the middle of their conference right now. So hopefully they can finish out their season strong.
Absolutely. And after this weekend's games, here's a look at the WCHA standings. Currently sitting on top of the standings is, of course, University of Minnesota at 15-4-1. They had just been dominant overall, going back and forth at number 1 and number 2 seed with Wisconsin. And there it is, Wisconsin, number 2, as I speak of them, at 14-4-4. And then Ohio State right there in the conference, number 3, sitting comfortably there. And then Duluth follows up with Bemidji State, and then Minnesota State Mankato, and then St. Cloud State at the lone bottom at 3-16-3, Nick. A lot going on for hockey. Hopefully St. Cloud can end on a positive note, though. But again, really tough to see. But they can still play a little bit of spoiler alert, knowing that they might be at the bottom seed, though. But kind of good thing, though, if they can keep their head up, though.
And we know that they just finished a series against Ohio State. And who do they have coming up next?
That's going to be a big one here. It's looking at the hockey team. They return back home on Tuesday as they will take on Mankato State. We saw what they were ranked earlier before hitting the road for a 2-game series against Duluth on Friday and Saturday. Again, those game times are set for 6 p.m. on Tuesday against Mankato, then again 7 o'clock on Friday, and then 4 o'clock on Saturday. Well, coming up after the break, we'll switch about almost 50 feet to our left and go and switch buildings from the Herb Brook to Hallenbach Hall. And we take a look at the men's and women's basketball action. And they were also in action this past weekend.
Husky Mag will continue right after the break. Leif, hockey was not the only sports in action this past weekend in the Granite City. The men's basketball team played their 3rd and 4th consecutive games at Hallenbach Hall, and the Cardinal and Black hosted the Upper Iowa Peacocks Friday night. At the half, the Huskies held a 1-point lead, but the second half would be a totally different story. Brindley Tyson, who was fighting for a milestone of his own, caught fire and had 18 points, shooting a perfect 6 for 6 from beyond the arc to fuel the Huskies to an 18-point win against the Peacocks with a final score of 92-74. Brindley Tyson led this game in scoring with 20 points off of 8 of 11 from beyond the arc. Gage Davis was not far behind him with 24 points of his own and grabbing 9 rebounds. And for the Peacocks, Haber was the star for the night. He had 15 points of his own and 3 rebounds for the Peacocks. Again, final score, Huskies 92, Peacocks 74. After their domination on the court Friday night, the Huskies looked to push their win streak to 3 games, and this time the battle took place at Hallenbeck Hall between the Winona State Warriors and your very own St. Cloud State University Huskies. The Warriors' Kavion Taylor scored a team-high 20 points, but the Huskies easily overcame that performance because the Cardinal and Black put forward 2 20-plus point scorers in the game. Gage Davis had 31, and Brindley Tyson, continuing with the hot streak, had 25. The Huskies would take this one by 15 with a final score of 85-70.
That game was incredible. I mean, it was back and forth, tied at halftime. I mean, last year it was a fun game to call on the road because they went into double overtime, and that was even crazy because Gage hit a buzzer beater to send it to overtime. But this game, I mean, Gage and Brindley Tyson went off. 57 combined points out of those 85 points that they scored. I mean, also Brindley Tyson, he shot 70% from both the field and from the perimeter.
And when you have 2 players in Gage Davis and Brindley Tyson that perform like that on any given night, it's almost impossible to beat a team when they have 2 really good players.
Yeah, and Gage Davis was honored for the 3rd week in a row for NSIC Player of the Week. It could have maybe gone to, maybe Brindley Tyson, though, but I'm going to talk to him earlier, though. He's very humble. It's not about the awards or the recognitions for him. It's about getting that Team W win, and that was a big weekend at home for St. Cloud to really get a sweep, and they showed up really well that weekend. Well, what's also kicking in as women's was also in action at Hallenbeck Hall as they also welcomed Upper Iowa. The Huskies started off on fire as they scored 23 points in the first quarter. The offense was picking apart that 2-3 zone from the Peacocks, and they're punishing them with shooting from 50% from both the field and beyond the 3-point line. The defense was just as impressive as the offense only allowed 9 points in that quarter as well, Nick. But, second half, Huskies, they really started to roll away with this. It was no surprise in this one. They took down Upper Iowa 69-56. And you know what? That was really cool about this game, Nick. 17 different players for St. Cloud State went on the bench and scored 41 bench points. I mean, analytically and number-wise, they knew they were going to take charge with that. But, I mean, it's obvious when they're doing that well against Upper Iowa, a team that's only won 3 games out of the year, 16-game losing streak. I mean, Mally Doucette, again, big part of that bench, 23 points. She came off and she was splashing it from the 3-point line. Tori Wartz did really well too. Nikki Caban was 1 point away from a double-double, but she was impressive again, like usual. Trina Tice, and of course, when you can have a team play everyone that's eligible to play on the bench, you're doing something right.
Yeah, and you don't see that very often. So congratulations for the Huskies to be able to, not only beat the Peacocks, but have the ability to play all 17 players on their roster.
And plus, it was a bonus. It was Coach Fish's birthday that day. So she is now currently 2-1, and since dating back to 2007, 2008, that the Huskies have played. So a good winning record, and a kind of an early nice birthday gift for Coach Fish.
Speaks for itself.
Well, let's look as the women's teams return back again on action on Saturday. They're looking to get the homestand sweep against Winona State. But let's see what the Warriors have in mind. Just like yesterday, the Huskies came out to a storming start, taking an 18-6 lead after the first quarter. Winona State would get things going offensively in the second quarter, and it would be a much different ball game. They would use a 14-7 run, Nick, to go into the half down by 5. Fourth quarter, this is where all the action and madness started. It was back and forth game affair, both teams exchanging leads, but in the final minute, Warriors' Emily Keek, she would knock down a crucial 3-point play, put the Warriors up by 3. Huskies had to call a timeout, and guess who would come up clutch? Tori Wartz. She would tie the game up with a 3-pointer with 38 seconds left to tie the game up at 53 apiece. And that would be, again, the settle action, minus 30 seconds, but turning point would come under 10 seconds as Rachel Novotny would get the rebound off the missed layup and score the go-ahead bucket with 7 seconds left. Huskies had one shot, but Aaron Navrajil missed the corner three. Koban had a chance for a second chance layup, but slipped out of her hands, and sadly it was a heartbreaker in Hallenbeck Hall as the Huskies would split the series, losing 55-53.
And obviously any team wants to win every single game that they play, and it's tough that last second shot was a missed layup, but the Warriors were able to grab the offensive rebound and put it back. That's always a tough pill to swallow for any team at any level.
Yeah, absolutely. Koban had a nice night. Again, the foul trouble was one thing that was hurting St. Cloud as she would pick up her third and fourth. Wart had three. I mean, that was hard in the aspect. And then, of course, the dribble penetration came alive for Winona State, and that kind of helped get them back into the game. And, of course, if you're just one rebound away, who knows, they could go in overtime, or maybe they take that game-winning shot that Tori Warts would have had that could have propelled them for the win. But who knows? That's why you always got to play the game. And let's look at our standings in the NSIC for women's basketball. Moorhead, who is currently ranked 24th, sitting on top at a 14-2 conference record. They have been really tough. And a surprising young team, Minnesota Duluth, Nick, has come out of nowhere. They're really hanging in there in the second spot. And then University of Mary hitting that 3 spot and getting ahead of the St. Cloud Huskies. And, of course, St. Cloud State's in that 4th spot, still holding on. I believe that 1 through 4 seeds will get that first week playoff at home. So it's crucial to get those top 4 seeds. So now sitting at the middle, Minnesota Crookston is sitting at 5. Then Minot State at 6. And wrapping up at the bottom is Northern State and Bemidji State.
And it's nice for the Huskies women's team because they're only 2 games away from that number 3 spot. And on the other side, 5, 6, and 7 are all tied with a 5-11 record, and the Huskies hold a 4-game advantage there. Obviously, you want to find some comfort in where you sit right now with your record, but the Huskies, I assume, just want to win games and do whatever it takes to get to the playoffs.
And taking a look for what's on deck for the Huskies, a tough road trip to tip off against Wayne State Wildcats and Augustana Vikings, the Vikings who sit at number 1 in the NSIC South. Game times are set for 5:30 p.m. on Friday and then 3:30 p.m. on Saturday.
And Hallenbeck Hall didn't only see action on Friday and Saturday with the basketball teams playing. They were also able to host the dual match for the Huskies wrestling team, and they took on Moorhead State, the Dragons, as the wrestling team played the Dragons on Thursday night. Surprising little upset here. Jones for the Dragons beat number 1 ranked Brett Velasquez 6-4 in that match, and Barzowski for St. Cloud State took over Ortloff with a domination of 12-2. Fitzpatrick again for St. Cloud ranked number 9 over Stenson 17-2, and then at the 197 weight class, number 1 ranked Vince Dietz for the Huskies took over Kodvichar 15-6. The Huskies win this total dual match by a final score of 32-6. Now, obviously, the Huskies wrestling team is very dominant in the NSIC, so let's jump right in to their standings and how the Huskies shape out against the rest of the NSIC wrestling standings. Yes, the Huskies are undefeated, but Minnesota State is technically in the number 1 spot because they have 1 more conference win than the Huskies. But, Leif, do not be afraid. The Huskies will take on the Minnesota State Mavericks pretty soon here coming up. And St. Cloud State sits at the number 2 spot. So there's a lot of exciting things, not only in hockey. Wrestling's also up there too.
Absolutely. Again, 3 championships out of the last 4 years. A tight class that has been coming through since their freshman year. It's outstanding what they have done. If you have not seen them at all, I would encourage you to go out. And this is a good time this weekend as we'll take a look what's on deck for the wrestling team. They'll be back to the mats this Thursday as they travel to Fayette, Iowa to face off against Upper Iowa. They will also return back to Hallenbeck Hall on Saturday to take on Mankato State. That's a good matchup there, 1 and 2, that can decide who will be on top of the NSIC. That will be set for 7 o'clock p.m. on Thursday and then 2 o'clock p.m. on Saturday, back in home, sweet home, Hallenbeck Hall. Also, Saturday's meet will also be senior day as well, so got some more excitement going on there as well, and kind of salute all the seniors that put all the hard work and dedication for the last 4 to 5 years.
Well, and they've been here for all of these national championships, so not only is it a credit to them for everything that they've accomplished at their careers here, best of luck to them as they obviously are being recognized for everything they've done here as student athletes, but also best of luck to them as they can focus in and try and take back that number 1 spot in the NSIC Wrestling Conference.
Absolutely, taking that number 1 spot back and also making another deep playoff push. It'll be very exciting to see what will happen at that tournament time. Well, coming up, we'll switch gears again, moving from the courts to, surprisingly, we're going to hit the diamonds, Nick. And that'll be very exciting coming up next.
Husky Mag will continue right after this. Don't go anywhere. Like you said, Leif, as weird as it sounds, spring sports were able to get started this past weekend, and the Huskies softball team began their 2019 softball campaign this past weekend as they hosted the Kelly Loss Memorial at the Husky Dome. The Huskies' first game was against the University of Nebraska-Kearney. Nebraska got things going off right away as Alexis Howe crossed the plate in the top of the first, making the game 1-0. But that would be the only run scored against the Huskies in this game, and the scoring party took place for the rest of the game on the St. Cloud side of things. Huskies took this game with a final score of 10-1. Participating in a doubleheader on Saturday, the Huskies first saw the Missouri Western State Griffins. In a close-fought game, the Huskies did not see the same outcome as they did on Friday. Again, letting their opponent score in the top of the first, the Huskies trailed for a majority of the game. The Cardinal and Black got one back in the fifth, and then the sixth inning, each team scored 6 runs of their own, with the Huskies still down 1. No runs were scored in the 7th inning, and the Huskies would drop this one with a final score of 9-8.
Man, that was a lot of runs going in. You weren't crazy when you saw the stats. 6 runs each in that 6th inning, and unfortunately St. Cloud falling on the short side just by 1 run.
But I think it's some encouragement for the softball team to be able to put up so many runs in just 2 games. And then in the second half of their doubleheader on Saturday, the Huskies were eager to get back to their winning ways. The UW Parkside Rangers, unlike their first 2 games, they were not giving a run to Parkside in this game. In fact, they would be held scoreless through the first 4 innings, and the Huskies, on the other hand, continued to produce with their bats, scoring 9 runs over 6 innings, and the Rangers were only able to muster up 1 of their own in the 5th inning. St. Cloud State takes this one in dominating fashion, 9-1.
Well, if there's something that isn't a problem for St. Cloud's offense is they can produce quite a bit of runs if you can saw the last 3 games.
Yeah, that is correct. And as they were wrapping up this Kelly Loss Memorial, again, the Huskies took on the University of Wisconsin Parkside Rangers to wrap up their opening weekend, and the Huskies had this game from the start. After scoring 5 runs in the 2nd inning, the Huskies would never look back, adding 3 more throughout the game. The Cardinal Black would only allow 2 hits, and the Rangers did not cross home plate once throughout the game. The Huskies take this one with a final score of 8-0, and after a 4-game weekend, the Huskies went 3-1 on the weekend, outscoring their opponents Leif 34-11.
My goodness, you're going to win a lot of ball games if you could do that in a 3-game weekend series. I mean, that's a good start, too, especially after a kind of a long offseason. Who knows how the teams can be. It's either going to be how their bats going to do or even how their arms may be, because I know that's kind of the first thing is how far can pitching go. And, well, I guess that Parkside game really showed that I think both are really ready to go, and can't wait for the softball team to hit even their playoff push within the NSIC as well.
And as cold as the weather's been, spring sports, like we said, they're here. They're happening now, and the softball team got off to a strong start, and they look excited to get their season under full swing.
And with spring sports in action, that's making me feel a little bit warmer inside, and hopefully crossing my fingers that no more negative 50-degree weather.
Yeah, I hope that's the only time I experience 50 below weather in my life.
Absolutely. Well, we'll stick on the Diamonds. The SCSU baseball team, fortunately enough for them, they escaped the winter vortex and they traveled to Minute Maid Park for the 2019 Houston Winter Invitational. First game, Huskies taking on Texas A&M Kingsville. Huskies would get things going right away early in the 1st inning as Matthew Meyer gets the RBI single to put Huskies up 1-0. And then we jump to the 8th as things were quiet, but then Huskies get that insurance run to go up 2-0. Caden Harris extends the lead later on with a 3-0 after an RBI single. They would really break things open later in the 8th as catcher Toran Shadi clobbers a 3-run bomb, baby. And that would be plenty of runs for the Huskies as they would open up the year with a dominant fashion win, 7-2. And just let's see how they keep going, Nick. Again, that's a dominant way, just like the softball team earlier in game 1, taking care of business. No productivity wrong with the offense. It was a little bit late for baseball, but hey, that's why you got to play all 9 innings, and they really exploded in that 8th.
And I think everybody was kind of expecting Texas A&M Kingsville to take this game away from the Huskies, but the Huskies came out strong. They did what they needed to do to win the game, and I think that 3-run home run really helped the Huskies get that win.
Absolutely, and it's always fun, especially hitting a dinger in a MLB stadium. What better place to do it than Minute Maid Park?
That's not something you get to do every day.
So props to him on that. Well, let's take a look at Saturday's baseball team again. They would take on Tarleton State this time on day 2. Again, Huskies out to a fast start thanks to Caden Harris. He drives in a couple of runs with an RBI single, puts St. Cloud up 2-0. Let's jump to the second. Huskies get their second home run of the season, with this one coming off the bat of Najee Hoskins. He would put up the Huskies 4-0. The team would score 7 runs in the first 2 innings for a commanding 7-0 lead. Mitch Malik, he would drive another RBI, a single in the 8th. Huskies again win up big, 8-1. And of course, they wouldn't stop there. 9-1 is their win, and they improved to 2-0 in the year, taking the first 2 games with complete dominance, Nick.
And it's always encouraging for any baseball team to know that you can start the game in the first couple innings, being able to get hits, score runs, but at the same time, even though they were up 8-0, that in those late frames, they were still able to get the extra insurance runs. Obviously, they didn't need them on Saturday, but there are going to be those games that the Huskies play where you need 1 or 2 extra runs just to feel comfortable, when you send your pitcher out to the mound to close out the game.
Absolutely, especially when conference play comes. That's where things, maybe whoever scores first is going to be big, and also who can come and rally late. Because again, we've seen some games that have been decided with those late run innings can really snatch away momentum and lose in heartbreakers. But again, good job for St. Cloud looking at it, and they are looking to complete a 3-game sweep in Houston. Huskies battling a tough University of Central Missouri. Starting things off in the first, Huskies get on the board of once again. It's deja vu, Nick. They're scoring a lot. But this one came off a mental error from Central Mizzou's pitcher. He would balk. Huskies would take the benefit there. They would tack on 2 more runs later on, thanks to Caden Harris's 2 RBI single. Huskies up 3-0. Let's jump to the 5th. St. Cloud not done scoring runs, as they will tack on 2 more. Will cross the plate off the base hit from Matt Cade. All St. Cloud in this one as they are up big 7-0, and that would be plenty enough for the starting pitcher Sheldon Mix, as he was dominant off the bump. 5 strikeouts, only 2 hits, or 5 hits, 2 earned runs. And of course, St. Cloud would complete the sweep, take the game 7-3. And again, what a great time to start 3-0. And again, I've been hearing sources against Central Missouri that might be a team where you might see in the regionals. That's what one person say on St. Cloud. So get that dominant win earlier in the year. That might be a big factor going in later in the end of the season. But again, what a way to start off for the baseball team. Go down to a lovely, warm Houston Minute Maid Park, and they enjoy their series with a 3-win bagger.
So coming up right after the break, you will find out who this week's leader of the pack was, and we'll also take a look at Blizzard's best plays.
You don't want to go anywhere. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at UTVS_Husky Mag for all updates and alerts on everything Husky sports. And also you can tune in on YouTube to see prior episodes of your favorite show, Husky Mag, as well as some other video alerts throughout our show. And before we get into our favorite segment, Nick, let's take a look at some milestones that have been achieved this year. There's been a lot. I mean, you get a lot to talk about there. You could be talking about basketball on the men's side, the women's side, and of course, I know we touched a little bit earlier in our show about hockey, for men's hockey. A lot of milestones going on. So, I mean, who knows what to start off with, but again, it's been very proud to call myself a St. Cloud State Husky fan. It's been dominant throughout all aspects of sports, whether it's men's or women's at the D1 level or the D2 level. I mean, it's just been quite impressive, Nick.
You're exactly right, and we can start off here as we're starting in hockey. Yes, Patrick Newell was the one to accomplish the 100-point club feat, the latest. You just saw it there on his assist right there. Congratulations to Patrick Newell, but again, he is not the only St. Cloud State Husky hockey player to reach that 100-point milestone in his career. Senior captain defenseman Jimmy Schultz also was able to reach that 100-point mark, and also was forward Robbie Jackson, and seeing 300-point scorers in the same year. is just unreal, and that just speaks to a testament of how good our team is and how well they play together.
So, well, Nick, let's transition to the favorite part of Husky Mag.
All right, let's get this started with Blizzard's Best, recapping the top plays of the week. And coming in at number 3 was Ryan Poehling scoring on a breakaway over Miami. And the key thing with this is Ryan skated past 4 Redhawks skaters, and right there just knuckles it right over Jordan Uhelski. Key point for Ryan Poehling, gives the Huskies a crucial win on Friday night.
That's another guy that's been doing well. Let's take a look at number 2. Here we saw it earlier. An epic save by Rennick. Denies the wraparound save. We have to take another look at this. Miami offensive guy has a one-on-one situation, but Rennick, just being stealthy, ninja-like, cat-like reflexes, denies it.
And at number 1, we've said it before, Jack Ashawn scores the goal on Saturday, but that's not the important thing. Patrick Newell had the primary assist on that goal, and like we've touched on it multiple times on this episode of Husky Mag, Patrick Newell was able to reach the 100-point milestone to be the 3rd player on the Huskies hockey team to do that this year.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable and deserving so why he is at number 1. Again, congratulations to him and the other athletes that have reached that 100-point mark. It's unbelievable that they've been doing that for their whole entire career.
Yeah. Leif, I think we've done everything that we could to recap everything that's happened in Husky athletics this past weekend. That wraps it up here on this episode of Husky Mag.
We'll see you next time here on Husky Mag.